Well, it's been some time, and when I say some time, 2015, 7 years ago since Michelin, French brand, big tyre manufacturer, has bought out a significant upgrade in their off-road range, dirt bike tyres. So, but this time around, and that was the Starcross 5 range, which included the sand, soft, medium and hard, 4 tyres in that range. But this time around with the Starcross 6, recently released, and they're making some really big claims. Like, I'm talking really big claims. As you do, you're improving your product the whole time. But there's obviously been a huge amount of R&D sort of tipped into this Starcross 6 range. Big claims in terms of performance. They're talking about sort of 15%. Huge claims in terms of performance when they're worn, and also much bigger durability over that previous generation tyre. So, now available in a sand tyre, a mud, which is in rear only, a medium soft, a medium hard, and a hard. So, we've had the opportunity, thanks to the guys from Gas Imports who bring in Michelin in Australia. We've had a range of tyres we've been testing, for the last couple of months or something like that, as the weather's turned from slop to today, which was a complete dry chip. So we've had a really good experience with this range of tyres. We've been focusing predominantly on the 18 rears and the 21 fronts for sort of trail and enduro, which is a greater bulk of the tyres ourselves. They do have motocross tyres. But we thought we'd also catch up with Josh Green, because Josh has been, I want to say since 12 years, since 2011 or something like that, has been racing with Michelin tyres. So he's seen several generations of tyres. So I know my glasses tweak you out a little bit, Greeny, but I've made some notes over the last few months, mate, because there's a lot of different sizes, a lot of different claims made by these tyres, and I kind of thought it was worth sort of making sure we sort of touch on them all. For starters, I think central to this is the fact that they've, according to Michelin, this is the first time they've brought in a silicon rubber technology. So my understanding, without getting too technical, is there's some change in the molecular structure of the rubber, and that affects not only the way it doesn't chunk or chip, or is less inclined to, but it wears a whole lot better as well. Yeah. So look, that's a key thing. So you've ridden, you won a 4-day. Okay, I think you were still on the Starcross 5s then. Swapped to the 6s, for your last couple of rounds, and finally, mate, it's about bloody time you won your E2 title in the Australian Off-Road Championship. Congratulations. But straddling both, the 5 and 6 generation. But okay, they're throwing out claims. You probably haven't seen the brochure. You're just a guy who gets free tyres and point to the starting line and go race, mate. But 16% more traction when new. Broad sweeping statement talking about all the tyres. In your experience, can you substantiate that?
Definitely. Like, I can notice a big difference. So, I mean, I can't sit there and go, yeah, it's 16%, but for sure I notice a big difference. So for me, that's a huge bonus.
Yep. Okay. The other thing, and probably the more telling thing for me, because you're getting new tyres all the time, right? You don't race on something that hasn't got a sharp edge, but for a punter buying a thing, if that performance lasts longer, right, rather than 2 rides and the thing shit, you've lost your sharp edge. So they're claiming 19%, so 1 in 5, like call it 20% more traction when worn. In other words, they're retaining their performance even when they're worn, which to me is kind of like the central thing of this whole range of Michelin tyres.
Well, for sure. I mean, the last couple of weeks it's been really dry here, and normally I chew tyres really, it's really abrasive here, and especially in Queensland at AJ's, it's really abrasive when it's dry. We got a lot of wheel spin, and I've just got the new 2-stroke, and my tyre has done 4 or 5 hours now, and it's still hooking up well, and it's you can see it's worn, but it's not worn crazy, so for me, I definitely notice a big difference. I probably would have gone through a couple of tyres in that time, so no doubt.
Yeah, and that's what they're claiming. Depending on which bit of literature or brochure you read from Michelin, they're saying somewhere between 11 and 19% more durable than the previous generation, which again is huge in terms of value for money, longevity of the tyre, and the fact that it's still performing well into its life.
I mean, for sure, and I like the sound of that, because someone who rides a fair bit, I'm sometimes changing tyres 2-3 times a week. So for me now, and I really don't enjoy changing tyres. I don't think anyone really does. So for me, it's less time in the shed, and it's more time I can actually go and ride and train. So.
Okay. Well, let's get this out of the way now, because talk about changing tyres. Man, we were doing some sweating today. Obviously, there's a much firmer construction. So look, we're looking at the Starcross 5 range. They had a 2-ply, much softer, I think 15% lighter, sort of carcass sidewall construction. As a result of that, to stop it rolling, throwing knobs or pinch flats, you had to run up around 15, 17 PSI.
Yep.
Which was a real challenge for Michelin to educate people. This time around, they've gone back to a thicker, probably more conventional sidewall and carcass construction. But also, they're not as easy to change as the 5s, right?
No, definitely. The 5s fell on. The 5s were really probably the easiest tyre I've ever had to fit.
Yep.
And we were kind of spoilt for a lot of years fitting those, and now yeah, definitely they've gone back to what they used to be, a lot harder to fit. But I wouldn't say they're any harder than any other tyre. It's just they're definitely more harder than a Starcross 5 to fit. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about the pressures, because I know that a lot of people struggle with that idea. You grow up and you spend your entire life running 13 psi or thereabouts, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly they bring out 7 years ago, Michelin brings out something and says, no, you got to run between 14.5 and 7.5. I know you guys ran on the lower end of that sort of band when you were racing with the fives, but a lot of other people just went, no, that's bullshit. They're just, I won't get a pinch flat, I'll be good.
Yeah, I mean,
and they threw knobs and it rolled and it didn't perform how it was designed to.
Yeah, so, there's obviously engineers that design the tyre, so they know the performance, and because it was a softer sidewall, if you ran too low of a pressure, it actually ran flat. It was like driving your car on the beach, right? You let your tyres balloon out, well, it's not going to turn on the tar very well.
Yeah.
So think of that on a tyre. If your tyre is underinflated, it's actually running flat, and it doesn't allow the tyre surface to be round and roll in, so you can't get that nice tip-in rolling effect.
Yeah.
So with the Starcross 5, if you didn't have 15 plus, it felt like you were riding with a flat tyre. Whereas now the new tyre, you can go back to your 12 to 14.
Yeah, and I think talking to a few of the Michelin reps, they're kind of stoked about that, because like education against convention when all the other brands are doing this sort of thing with pressure, and pressure's key, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. So the 6s have gone back. I think recommendation is 12 to 14, which is back in conventional. I think you guys have said back end of this season you were running more like 11s.
Well, we run mooses, but practice with tube. And I've even dropped down to 11 on some tracks and found it, still works quite well. So, I mean, 11, 12, 13, that's sort of the ballpark figure. And I mean, I was running mine at 12 today, and when we come in and checked halfway through, they'd gone up to 13 with the heat. So, tyre pressures do actually change throughout the day. So.
Okay. Hey, something that I actually taught you. I saw you're a pretty nice rack of tyres up there before, though. But these things, now you've got 5. Obviously, you've got a sand, there's a new mud, and then there's a medium soft, a medium hard, and a hard. And, it's always a bit of a bugger when you've got your tyres racked up, to pull them out and have a look at the sidewalls if you haven't got stickers on them. But how cool is the ingenious little system whereby in between on the tread pattern, I think... let me just again refer to my notes, mate. But you can, if you've got 4 lines, it's a sand tyre, 3 lines, it's the mud, 2 lines medium soft, 1 line is a medium hard, and 0 lines is a hard. So just looking at the tread pattern until you get used to it, it's ingenious, right?
It's a cool concept, right? You can really see that, and it's quite simple to read, right? So yeah, it definitely makes life easier when you've got them all fitting in a rack.
Let's sort of talk about that range. So previously you had 4 in the range, now 5. It's a slightly different, naming protocol, I guess. You've tried the sand. You want to maybe just grab that and have a look at that. There you go, 4 lines. You can grab the sand straight away. You can probably see the scoop. Now I know you've used this thing and raved about it. We haven't, for both motocross and enduro bikes. So the motocross there's a 100, 110, and 120 rear.
Yep.
But the sand and then the mud is something you haven't tried yet, but like the
yeah.
look of.
So I did ride with the sand, and it's a bigger improvement over the 5. Basically just the knobs are bigger, the thing hooks up. Like I was coming into corners and where you'd normally get a bit of spin, my bike was like wheel standing and wanting to like hook up and launch me out of there. So I definitely noticed a big difference with that. Another thing I noticed was coming in hard on brakes. The old tyre used to squirm a little bit coming in. Yep. This feels more like you're running a motocross tyre, so you can actually come in and the bike stays straighter while braking.
Yep. So
that is a huge bonus, especially with us when we use it for desert racing. You're coming in at high speed, braking quite hard. The squirm gets a little scary when you're doing 160 and getting on the brakes. So it's definitely going to make it a lot more comfortable for us at races like Hattah. So yeah.
And the mud. Now I know that you haven't tried the mud yet, but that's obviously sort of like a variation on the
for sure.
On the sand.
I haven't tried the mud yet. I'm really intrigued to try this thing. I think like a nice wet grass track or something with its a fresh surface, even like a freshly prepped and watered motocross track. I feel like this tyre is going to be really, really nice to ride with. I'm excited to try it. Obviously it's powder and hard pack here today, so I wasn't going to put that on and destroy it just yet. But yeah, I'm really excited to try this tyre. I think it's going to be a really good in-between.
Yeah, it's got an interesting pattern too, really interesting.
Yeah.
Right, let's talk rears a bit. I mean, it's nice to have those options. As I said, you've got 19-inch rears available in 5 options in the 100, 110 and 120 widths. But for trail and enduro, the 18-inch rears come either in a 100, 18 or a 120, 90. I guess for larger capacity machines, 450s, etc., the 120s are kind of obvious, an obvious choice. But I know a lot of people, struggle with, I know a lot of manufacturers, even Yamaha, for instance, out of the factory, they come out with the same tyre on the 250 and 450 WR. So a lot of people struggle between the 120 and the 110 and what to use where and why. People think the 120 looks cooler, but it might not work as well.
Yeah.
What's your take? Like where does the 120, the wider tyre, so on a 250, where would that be your pick?
To be real honest with you, unless it's like a really deep, heavy track, I like the bigger tyre. It's more surface area, so you get, when it's dry and slippery, you get more surface area, it's more grip. Sometimes in the mud, it's a bigger surface area, so if you've got, again, more grip, you've got more traction. But when you want it like a deep sort of loamy soil where you want it to cut and drive and you want to give the bike that little bit extra help with power because it's a small ball, that's where a smaller tyre can help. So motocross is a big difference. If you have a big tyre and a small tyre, drag racing, the small tyre is a lot lighter and it's a lot smaller. It'll cut in and drive a lot harder. So if you were drag racing, for instance, a smaller tyre would probably be more beneficial. But for 95% of us that are trail riding or racing off-road, a bigger tyre with more traction is probably more beneficial.
On the downside, bigger tyre makes the bike sort of turn a little bit more sluggishly.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit sluggishy, but then, hitting tree roots and rocks and stumps and things like that, you've got more give then too, so you've got a bit more cush under your bum.
Cool. Let's talk about, okay, so we did a lot of the stuff we did today, both in the bush and the grass track, and we had some really skatey stuff, and what we've been doing over the last little while is the medium soft front and rear, and the medium hard front and rear. Yep. So just take us, I know that you've been riding, obviously as the things have dried out. It's the first time I think I've seen dust today in literally 12 months.
Yep.
And it was a really good opportunity, right? Because
good.
Man, there's a huge difference between those tyres. So take us through that difference and how you were pretty damn surprised today.
For sure, in the Starcross 5 range, I really just stuck to running softs. I liked them, how they worked everywhere. Obviously they didn't last when it was dry and dusty like it is now, but I liked the performance, so that's what I ran. And then that makes me want to just try medium softs, right? So that's my sort of go-to tyre as soon as we got stock. I was like, yep, let's run that, and that's what I've been running.
And racers are thinking like that because the wear is not really an issue,
yeah,
right?
Wear is not an issue. We're on new tyres every day at racing, so there's that factors out of it. It's just simply performance. We want the fastest tyre. Today was very powdery, hard pack. There's old ruts and water ruts, and then there's powder everywhere. There's rock and stuff, and it really blew me away putting the medium hards on. The front was really impressive how it actually could cut through the dust and turn out of things. That was the biggest thing for me, was just the way the front felt a lot more planted and would turn out of things. I found that mind-blowing.
You went in pretty sceptical to that as well.
Yeah,
I had to force you to change that thing.
I know, like looking at the tyre patterns, I sit there and go, I like the look of that pattern, which is the medium soft. I think that tyre's gonna work, and I think in the right conditions, and most conditions it would work. Today's conditions being hard, shiny, slippery powder, I was a little bit skeptical because, I do run softs everywhere, and when we put that thing on, I was, super impressed. Like, it's changed my whole thought process of what I need to be running. So.
And that, I think is testament to the fact that now that they've been a little bit more precise in terms of what they're offering, and that each tyre gives you a little bit more versatility. The medium hard extends further into hard terrain territory, and the medium soft extends in terrain of its performance more into the soft terrain as well. Compared to the 5 medium. Yeah, look, that was really interesting, to see that today. And also, I think one of the tyres, the mid-soft, I think we had about 10 or 12 hours on the thing as well. And it's like, it's got a hard jet. I'm pretty sure you said that track we're down there today in those conditions, if you've been running a 5 with that rocky, shitty, shaly stuff, or particularly on a 450, you reckon the thing would be chunked and chipped?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's the track's really washed out from a year or so of rain, but when it gets dry, it's like hard pack, there's rock in it, and then it's a lot of wheel spin because it's powdery. So you're drifting into a lot of the corners, and I can do a rear tyre in an afternoon down there. So like I can throw knobs and it's really aggressive on tyres. And I mean, if you look at all the tyres we've been running today, there's barely a mark on them. So, it's pretty crazy, and their statements are, it backs up, right?
It underlines what the brochure's saying. Let's also talk, and we've done this a little bit before, because Michelin's always offered an 80 and a 90 front. So, it's an 80-100 and a 90-100. So, and just in terms of the width, the 90-100 also means it's 90 by 90. So it's 100% in terms of ratio. So it's got more sidewall. So A lot of people ask the question, you know, and I vacillate between one or the other. But in your mind, you know, where does each tyre shine and why?
I mean, today is probably perfect for a 90 by 90. You're not really trying... 90-100, my bad, yeah. So it's not really, you're not trying to cut a fresh line on a grass track or, you know, there's not perfect traction. So a bigger tyre, more cush, is a lot nicer in the hands. It also has more surface area, so when it is powdery and slippery and slimy, it actually, you've got more feel of the ground and you've got more traction there to turn it.
And a bit more sidewall for rocks. One, to cushion it, and two, to guard against pinch flows.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And so the smaller tyre, for me, is better on a fresh racetrack or a fresh grass track, or if the conditions are, you know, really loamy and nice conditions, you want to cut a fresh line, and it's a little bit more precise in that sense. It cuts deeper and wants to cut through. So yeah, it's a little bit harsher in the hands. But yeah, the 90 is definitely nicer in the conditions we're in today. And simply for trail riding, long days on the bike, I think the 90 would be nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a more versatile all-round tyre for a guy that's not looking for precision.
Yeah, you're not going for tenths of seconds every lap trying to race. You know, you just want a bit of comfort. You want something that works. It's going to be a lot bigger, so you're going to get less pinch flats, things like that. Hitting tree roots and rocks and things, it's nicer because it's bigger. Yeah. And it's going to have more grip most of the time because it has a bigger surface area.
Sure, but it also rakes out another, say, 10 mil. It also effectively rakes out your steering geometry, right? Makes the nose sit up a little bit. Do you offset that with dropping, you know, lifting your forks up through the clamps a little bit?
For sure. I mean, if we were going for a race scenario and, you know, we were going for that, you know, tenths of seconds and we were going to opt for the bigger tyre because of the conditions, we would then adjust our suspension to suit. So we'd slide the forks through a little bit and work on that. Yeah.
Okay. We always got to talk about the downsides, mate. I made a bit of a note to myself. I don't think they have any mini sizes, or not yet anyway, in the Starcross 6, which is a bit of a bugger because of the Starcross 5 range. Now this is something you completely foreign to you, mate, and this prices, because I don't think, well, I think you paid a full freight for a tube the other day because you ran out of them. But anyway, the prices, they're not the cheapest on the market. So, you know, just talking about the fronts, we're talking sort of 140 to 155 for the fronts, and then sort of 160, 175 on the rears, which not massively above, I guess, what the average is. I mean, there's certainly some more expensive tyres out there on the market too, but more expensive than the 5s, the Starcross 5 range.
Yep.
Talking to Michelin guys, they're kind of like, well, really, we tipped so much bloody R&D into this thing, and, you know, it's the first new range in generation of tyres in 7 years. But in my mind, if those numbers are true, if they're doing 15, 20% better, you know, like performance and wear and durability, and you're paying 10% more,
it's worth it, isn't it?
Yeah, and also the fact that, you know, halfway through the tyre's life that it actually has still got grip rather than like halfway through its life and it lost its grip 10% into its life.
Yeah, and you want to throw it out and you want to get a new one, you know, halfway through.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can probably hang on to it a lot longer. You'll get twice, 3 times longer out of your tyre because it still performs worn out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, like I guess just, you know, from our experience and what it sounds like from you as well, it's you know, both racing and just sort of testing, it's a pretty significant upgrade. You know, I think what they're saying is kind of like, it's not just hot air, right? There's some substance to what Michelin's claiming with this new range.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you always get the facts. You know, you get a little bit of facts when the new stuff comes out, and everyone reads it and goes, "Oh yeah, okay, is it really worth the difference? You know, is it much better?" And it's super noticeable. Like, it's a big improvement, and it makes me excited to go racing next year because I've got a new bike and I've got new tyres that perform better, so I can go faster now, and that for me is exciting.
And next time it rains and gets a little bit muddy outside, mate, we're going to definitely check in with you again when you've got cause to run that muddy. And,
yeah, the day it rains and we get some good conditions, I can't wait to slap this thing on and just to see what it actually can do. So.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been a really interesting exercise over the course of the last few months. Great to, you know, to chime in with Greenie, get his thoughts on the matter, given that he's been with Michelin for so long. So, but a pretty impressive, I think, new range of tyres from Michelin. You know, we're looking forward to having a crack at them in a bunch more conditions and seeing if those, you know, those wear statistics that they're talking about are actually, you know, bear out in are actually true.